hit a bong out of a Coke bottle, and you know the little, you know how the metal part of the pencil when you erase and you take. I had bit the pencil, took the metal part off, put a hole in the top of the. Let me not tell y'all how to do this. I'm not trying to tell y'all how to make no bong out of no Coke bottle and a pencil. Cause man, like, you can be pretty all day, but if you ain't got no wisdom, you might as well put a gold ring in a pig nose and put y'all side by side and be like, cheese. Cause you can't help nobody. You can't even help yourself. The first thing that I can remember as I was coming up about myself is I had a heightened sex drive. I was just very sexual at a young age. I was masturbating often. And it was just something that I felt like I just couldn't control. It was like this impulse that was in me to just be sexually aroused, sexually affiliated with whatever. Like, even pornography, there was a part of my childhood. I would just run to this like on autopilot. It was just me in that moment of my life. And so I was naturally just private and secretive because of this. Things that are done in the dark don't want to get found out. And so you hide stuff from your family. You stay in your room more than you should. It's just a lot of secrets, a lot of being closed off and shut off. I struggled with a heightened sexual drive since I was very little. And the spiritual implications of that is our fallen nature subjecting us to satanic forces, satanic inspiration, satanic impulses that don't come from God. I grew up in the church. I was taken there by my grandmother every Sunday from a young age. Even though I didn't know what was going on, I didn't know nothing. I just knew this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to church. You're supposed to wear dresses. You're supposed to wear stockings. You're supposed to be quiet and sit there and not talk too much and pretend like you're listening even if you ain't listening. I also, in my childhood, remember being a thief. There were times where I would run wild outside with my friends and go to this specific store called Dollar General. Not Dollar Tree. And, everything in there $1. But we still felt the need to steal it. Like we couldn't just go get $1 or something and just buy whatever it is that we wanted. But we took it upon ourselves to just steal, from Dollar Tree. Just, like I said, that fallen nature is just addicted to being wicked and evil just for no reason, stealing stuff that ain't even got to be stole. So I just was affiliated with a lot of stuff that's just youthful lust, youthful, pleasures or whatever. During this time in my life, I want to bring to the light that I broke out like really bad on my skin. So it's still like discoloration and spots on my face. Now it's not as noticeable as it was then, but now, I'm clear or whatever. But then it was like dots everywhere all over my body. I broke out so bad that it was like dots. I wish I had pictures, but I don't have any of my old, any of that old stuff. But I just broke out like very, very bad all over my body from top to bottom. It was like scabs and like, it was a mess. And I think I broke out when I was 6 years old. So my skin was clear and perfect looking up until I was 6 years old. And then I broke out. This was before all of this happened, but not all of this. But the theft, I was a little older when it started to take place. I went to church all throughout my childhood. Also, my dad got locked up when I was 9 years old. And so I won't go into details about what he got locked up for, but I have not seen him in person since I was 9 years old. And so throughout my childhood, throughout my teenage years, I was just really, we was with my mom and we were being raised by her and by my grandmother and everything. So that was pretty much the summary of my childhood. I was just overly sexual. I was overly secretive. I always got the door closed. Don't ever want to talk to nobody about nothing. Just on my own, just doing me. But, that wasn't the right way to be. Now I want to touch on my teenage years and middle school years. I was always an outcast because I was so secretive. So I was always by myself. And it was not just because I was secretive that I was an outcast, but it was because I had broken out so bad that all throughout my teenage and middle school years, I was kind of looked at differently because I didn't look the same as everybody else. I was the one that always people want to ask, did you get burned? Like, what happened? You drink too many drinks, so the acid just eating up your skin. Or it would always be the subject of discussion whenever I talk to somebody. It would always be about my skin. And so it kind of made me kind of just be shy and even more. I already was secretive. That just added on a layer of me being even more shy, even more closed off to everybody around me. So my skin was a mess. I mean, just imagine like dots, just black dots, just like everywhere. That was how I looked. And it took me a while to grow out of that. I was bullied for my skin. People girls mainly, they would just treat me like I didn't belong because my skin was so different from theirs. And I've forgiven them for this, but this is just for the sake of sharing what I've been through throughout my journey of being a child of God, but not always knowing that I belong to God and not coming into agreement with the fact that I belong to God. And I was bullied for this in two different sides of town. So I grew up in a predominantly white school, but the white kids didn't bother me. It was the black kids that bothered me. They were the ones that were, treating me like I didn't belong, even though we was the same, race. Man, if people want to treat you bad, they're going to treat you bad. It don't matter if you black, white, brown, blue, purple. If they don't like you, they don't like you. If they see something they don't like, it don't match up with their background and their beliefs. And if they feel like that's enough to be prejudiced against you, they will be prejudiced against you. And so my skin was the driving factor behind why I was so ostracized from everybody else. I moved from that school where it was predominantly white, and I got bullied for that. And I went to a black school, and I got bullied again by a group of black kids, black girls. And this was an ongoing thing. This happened a lot. I was consistently under this umbrella of ostracism. Like I was not accepted. I was accepted by a few people, but I didn't have any friends. I didn't have that little clique. I did have one friend throughout middle school though that stuck by my side, but that wasn't enough to overshadow all the pain and all the heartache that came from knowing like people just really don't like me because of how I look. So I continued to hide. There was just more fuel to the fire. It made me hide and bury my personality, bury myself, and just never truly open up to anybody and just put on this facade and put on this mask. So during this time, I was also dealing with a lot of false hope of my dad getting out of jail. So he was locked up, for what he was locked up for. And I was consistently just thinking, okay, he gonna get out one day. He gonna get out. And I think he been locked up. That was 2009. It's 2024. I'm bad with math. He been locked up for 15 years now. And whole time back then, I'm not realizing this man finna be locked up for 15 years, so you might as well just stop caring. You might as well just give up on this hope of him getting out before you become 18. And so, I was constantly strung along. Me and my siblings was just strung along thinking he finna get out, but he's not. And so that can be a lot of weight on a child's shoulders thinking they daddy finna get out of jail because we was used to seeing him, more than never. That was like that false hope just hovering over me. Even this worth noting that when I was in elementary, that was around the time he got locked up. I had got, me and the friends that I had in elementary school to write letters to my dad and send them to jail, where he was at so he could read them. But I had got everybody, to write letters to him and everything. And they did. They were so sweet and kind. at that moment of my life. Now, this was in elementary. I had some really, really good, solid friends who they rounded up together. They did some letters. They colored them. It was just so beautiful, and that showed the passion I had and the hope I had in my dad eventually getting out, is that I was able to go that far as to ask everybody to get together and write, some letters and create him some little stuff to lift his spirits while he was in jail, while he's, there. That's mainly the summary of my middle school years. So now moving on to high school. I was basically still shutting myself off, but this was the official moment in my life where I said, man, ain't nobody finna know who I am. I don't care who you are. I don't care how nice you are. I don't care what you ask me about. If I don't want to tell you, I'm not gonna tell you. If I don't want to talk, I'm not gonna talk. I shut myself off so bad. Nobody knew me. I even got the name Shy because nobody knew who I was, and I refused to let anybody know who I was. I always had a wall up, and that was just what it was. So people tended to confuse that with me being innocent. People tended to think that, oh, she's so sweet, she don't ever do nothing, because she don't ever talk. And just because somebody don't talk doesn't mean they're innocent. People mistook that for innocence, and far from the truth. So, self-hate started to really accumulate at this moment in my life. I really started to hate myself. I hated everything about me, and my skin started to kind of be less severe during this time, but ironically, I started to hate myself more, even though my skin was healing, even though I didn't look as bad as I did when I was in middle school. I started to hate myself. And so, this is when a lot of self-harm started to happen. I cut myself. And, people think that's for white kids. Man, anybody can self-harm. Anybody can cut themselves. Anybody can slit their wrist. Anybody can commit suicide. So this does not belong to just one class of people. This can spread like wildfire. And I was in a friendship when I was in high school that was a breeding ground for these emotions to just explode into even more self-hate, because she was the same as me. When you're in a relationship with anybody that is exactly like you, there is literally no room to grow. You have to be friends with people who are either better than you or better than you. You can't be friends with somebody who got the same issues you got. You can't be in a relationship with somebody who got the same demons you got. You can't be in a relationship with somebody who got the same fears you got. Y'all not gonna grow. All y'all gonna do is make the dynamic of the issues that you're dealing with just reach a higher height. And so, I didn't have the wisdom to be able to understand that you really shouldn't be in this friendship. I was so young, and when we all growing up trying to find our way through life without the word of God, without the help of God, and we just bound to bump our head a million times. Throughout this situation, I was plagued with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. So I was too afraid of hell to kill myself. But I sure wanted to not be here anymore because the pain was so intense. I was just constantly hating everything about myself. Y'all, I hated my eyes. I hated my lips. I hated my nose. I hated my name, which is Abria. I hated my name, Abria. I didn't want nobody to call me that. I wanted to change my name. I told people to start calling me Robin. Don't call me Sensei. Don't call me Abria, because I hate that name. And so that was my reality. I didn't want to be called by my name. Everything about me, y'all wanted to die because of how I looked. I hated the texture of my hair. That's one of the reasons I started dreadlocks, because I hated the texture of my hair. I hated my body shape. I hated anything, you name it. I hated it. I hated it. And imagine honing in on yourself so bad to the point you want to kill yourself. Like, you don't even want to be alive no more, because Satan then crept in and convinced you and made you believe that you're ugly. Not that looks should matter that bad anyway, to the point where it'll make you want to die because you don't look like this person on Pinterest or on Instagram. Good God, the devil had me by the neck. I'm talking about he had his foot on my neck, because the self-hate was out the roof. It was crazy. During this time, I was still, being subjected to sexual promiscuity from, my sinful nature. I was being sexually promiscuous during the end of my senior year. I had to get submitted to Lakeside because I was so depressed. I didn't know where else to turn. And so I was an outpatient at Lakeside for probably about a week. I wasn't there any longer than a week. But that moment in my life was so intense that it was almost like a living hell. But I had no clue that this was just the beginning of an even greater living hell that I was going to have to go through. I go on to college. And good God, why did I go there? Because what I went there and did, it had nothing to do with a degree. It didn't have nothing to do with no guidance counselor advice that I had received. I wowed it out. And it was something that when I look back on it, sometimes I wish I had never went, because what was the point? The sexual promiscuity went through the roof even more. I was hopping from bed to bed, person to person. I'm talking about I had no self-control. My roommate even went, she told me, you got too many boys. Because every day I would be coming back and telling her about this new dude I met. Girl, I met this dude and he this and he that. And I'm really not seeing nothing wrong with how sick my actions are. I have nothing. My conscience just seared. I don't feel nothing. I'm just on autopilot, just going through life. And it's so ironic because I'm doing drugs, I'm smoking, I'm drinking. Man, I even had ended up smoking in the bathroom. It's so crazy. I made a bong out of a Coke bottle, and you know how the metal part of the pencil, when you erase and you take, I had bit the pencil, took the metal part off, put a hole in the top of the, let me not tell y'all how to do this. I'm not trying to tell y'all how to make no bong out of no Coke bottle and a pencil. I ended up making a bong. I smoked weed in the bathroom. I was so paranoid. I was high as a dog. And I got paranoid because I thought I was finna get expelled from college, because I was like, man, this weed is loud. I know some people can smell this stuff, and I know they finna go tell on me, and I know I'm finna get thrown out on my butt. And it was just crazy. It was crazy. I can't believe I even did that. But I was dealing with heartbreak and heartache. I was writing love songs, hate songs. They weren't love songs, but I was writing songs about the heartache that I was going through. And songwriting and making songs was my outlet. I was at the studio every day. I'm talking about, you couldn't catch me without catching me at the studio. I was in there. I lived in there. I'm talking about, I'll be in there until the sun went down, because I love music. Like I still, that's really still a big part of me. But not to get too far off into that, I would always write songs. I'm talking about, that was me, honey. You couldn't tell me I wasn't finna be no musician. You couldn't tell me I wasn't finna be an artist out here in the secular industry.
Get down because you didn't know how to solve them. I hate niggas like racism and killers. I never thought I'd be there, who always up in the feelings, but don't.
You couldn't tell me I wasn't. And so that was me. I was obviously that the sexual immorality was coming from, me seeking validation from dudes. I wanted to not feel lonely. I wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. I wanted to feel like, I got my life under control. But meanwhile, you know what I'm saying, the whole time, we ain't got nothing under control if we got to act like that. I was still being pursued by God, though. Even though I was out here hopping around doing whatever, just being a demon child, man, God was still, his shadow was still on me. His shadow was still hovering over me. Just like in Genesis when he hovered over the face of the water, man. Even when you in the midst of chaos, in the billows and the breakers of the ocean just swallowing you up, you got to realize God is always there. He's still always there. Even though you don't sense him. Man, even the very breath in your body that's the breath of God that was shared with you. So even when you breathing, man, like and doing the wrong thing, he there. So I was still being pursued by God's children, because there were people on campus who were inviting me to the ministry that was on campus. And I went a few times. They had something called a D group, where you go to talk about, stuff that you're going through. You talk about the pain that you're dealing with. You talk about God. You talk about scripture. And so I still had a little bit of light that was following after me. But, I was following after the darkness. And I was full blown, just flat foot out Egyptian style. I was not worried about God. Like, I loved him still, but child, there was some toxic love. There was some toxic love. I get kicked out. Now, I ain't get kicked out. And why am I laughing so hard? Really, because I can't believe myself. I'm just shocked and appalled at myself. But I didn't get kicked out. I had to leave college because I was such a bum and so lazy. I took the minimum amount of hours, and so the amount of hours I had to take to get my scholarship, I didn't take that amount of hours. So I went part-time when I should have stayed full-time. So I couldn't get my scholarship, so I had to go back home. So shortly after going back home, we was about to get evicted from our apartment. So I asked God, I was like, okay, God, I don't want to go stay with no family members, so I just want my own apartment. So could you bless me with my own apartment? And so it was really, I asked him for my entire family, for my mom and my sister and all of us to go. And, he ended up, merciful as he is and as gracious as he is, even though my raggedy, dingy budget did not deserve it, he blessed me with an apartment. And he blessed us with one because they were all supposed to move in as well. And so God blessed me with an apartment. We moved out of, the apartment that my mom was staying in at the time. And this new apartment that we were in, we all stayed there for a few months until they moved out, and then it was just me. Good God, why did that happen? They should have stayed, because it probably could have saved me a whole lot of issues. And so, I'm staying in this apartment, and this is when the Egyptian style lifestyle just continued. I continued to invite people in my house. I let anybody come in there. Like, I'm talking about, I had people staying with me that never should have stayed with me. I was just living a lawless lifestyle. Like, lawlessness was my middle name. I had no chill. I had no boundaries. And I'm bringing this up because, man, like, we got to realize that moment in our lives where we are living outside of the will of God, we subject ourselves to so much pain and so much trauma, so much heartache, so many bad memories that we didn't even have to go through if we had to listen to him from the jump, from the get-go. Man, but anyway, I was drinking like a fool. I was drinking like a fish. Every time I turn around at the liquor store. Every time I turn around, I'm talking so fast. I was at the liquor store. I was on Taylor Port. I was drinking margaritas all the time. I'm talking about, it wasn't a day that could go by where I felt like, I didn't need a drink. And so that was my lifestyle. I was drinking. I was smoking cigarettes. I was smoking blacks, because I had got a little taste of my first cigarette from the lady that, from high school. That good Lord, anyway. Woo! The things we do. So I got addicted to cigarettes and black and miles. Man, I was just polluting my temple, polluting my po temple, inviting random folk to live with me. Kept the house dirty, child. The house was so dirty. It was dirty all the time. Stink. It was not good. It was dirty. Y'all, it was so dirty that I found maggots in my sink one time. I'm laughing because this ain't funny, but it's wild. It was maggots in my sink. That should paint a picture to you how the neglect that I subjected that apartment to. I just continued to get heartbroken because I kept letting dudes in my life that God didn't send. I kept looking for trouble. And when you look for it, best believe you're going to find it. And so I kept on writing them sad love songs. I kept on writing the sad heart. Now, why I keep saying love songs? Heartbreak songs. I kept on, pouring my heart out on the track. Still, trying to coat my way and suck my thumb through the pain when I ain't even have to go through all that. I could have but hey, I really did have to go through that. I keep saying I didn't have to, but a lot of the times, man, we ain't going to listen till we made to listen. We're not going to sit down till somebody force us down. And so, man, I was roaming around just looking for wickedness to get into. It was times where, man, I was looking for what I could do next. My feet was restless. I was just like, I couldn't be satiated. I became the epitome of Proverbs chapter 5. I became the epitome of Proverbs chapter 5 in its entirety. And nobody knew. I'm talking about nobody knew. Nobody knew. I'm finna read Proverbs chapter 5 so y'all can understand, what I'm trying to get at here. It says, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen closely to my understanding so that you may maintain discretion and your lips safeguard knowledge. Though the lips of the forbidden woman drip honey and her words are smoother than oil, in the end she is as bitter as wormwood and as sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps head straight for Sheol, which is hell. She doesn't consider the path of life. She doesn't know that her ways are unstable. I had no clue that my ways were unstable. I had no clue I was on the path to hell. I did not know. So now, sons, listen to me and don't turn away from the words from my mouth. Keep your way far from her. So while I'm sitting up here writing all these love songs about the dude that did me wrong, they really should have left me alone. They really shouldn't have been in my house. They shouldn't have been under my roof, in my bed. They shouldn't have been affiliated with me, because I was the one that was messed up a lot of the time while I was pointing the finger at the guys like, ain't these dudes ain't no good. They ain't this, they ain't that. Ladies. If you ain't no Proverbs 31 woman, you a Proverbs chapter 5 woman. And the dude ain't the problem. Now, he might be the problem, but you the problem too if you got something to say. So, we just got to realize, man, it ain't always the other person. It ain't always the one you writing a song about. It ain't always the one you listening to the song about, thinking about. It ain't always that. And so, it says, keep your way far from her. Don't go near the door of her house. Otherwise, you will give up your vitality to others and your years to someone cruel. Strangers will drain your resources, and your hard-earned pay will end up in the foreigner's house. Now, I tasted some of that as well. At the end of your life, you will lament when your physical body has been consumed, and you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart despised correction. I didn't obey my teachers or listen closely to my instructors. I am on the verge of complete ruin before the entire community. I'm telling you, this relates to me in a lot of ways, because if I had just listened, I'm talking about even when you were a child, the little bit that you do get at church could save your life. You don't need no sermon, because you ain't even going to listen. You ain't going to hear it. You got to get the basics first. So if we would listen to what our instructors, what the wise counselors in our family tell us, we don't want to hear it. We too stiff-necked to hear it. But by the time we go through all this foolishness, when we become an adult, it's too late. Now you forced to listen because your circumstances and your past done whooped your tail. And so, I was the Proverbs chapter 5 woman, and now I'm trying to be Proverbs 31. So, I was pretty on the outside, I was riding on the inside, And that reminds me of Proverbs chapter 11, verse 22, that says, a beautiful woman who lacks discretion is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. That was me. And this scripture is spot on with these, because, man, like, you can be pretty all day, but if you ain't got no wisdom, you might as well put a gold ring in a pig nose and put y'all side by side and be like, cheese, because you can't help nobody. You can't even help yourself. You can't raise no kids. You can't help no man, a man of God at that. You not at that, but if you want a man of God, you ain't going to get him, because you're not up to par within your soul. And so cute is out. Cute is out when you don't have God in. Okay. Cute is out when you ain't got God in. So, good Lord. I asked God during this time, I was slowly starting to realize life, it's got to be more to life than this. I was asking God, to help me quit smoking the cigarettes and the Black and Milds, because I felt like, I'm killing myself slowly. I'm killing myself. I can't quit. I can't keep on. I couldn't quit. But I was like, man, I can't keep on killing myself. Cause I'm smoking this stuff, man, and month going by, days going by, weeks going by, girl. You ain't quitting now. What you gonna do? Be a smoker all your life? You gonna let yourself die of cancer? What you gonna do? You know? And so I realized that this stuff was at a rate where it ain't stopping. It ain't slowing down either. And I ain't got the power in my bones to quit smoking. So God, please help me. You know, I cried out to him. And he's so faithful, y'all. I'm smoke free today. No, ain't hey. During this time where I was still being in rebellion, I made a prayer closet. And, you know, I was struggling still with the addiction to masturbation. I was struggling, you know, staying pure. And I know we can't please God and we not in purity. You can't do it. You can't serve two masters. So I made a prayer closet, and I just took it upon myself, girl, just do the first step. Just do the first thing. You ain't got your life right, but you ain't got to. That's what Jesus for. He's supposed to help you get right when you ain't right. So I made the prayer closet, and I was just crying out to God. I was asking him, God, come, I gotta change. Something gotta change. I gotta do better. And so I had sticky notes of scripture all around my wall. I'm talking about I made a place for him and me. Even though I had not had my life right, I made a place for him and I. And I just want to say, like, if you in a situation in your life where any of these sound like you, any of my past line up with your past, any of my mistakes line up with yours, if your conviction lined up with mine, God is telling you, come as you are. That ain't just a saying for church people to tell you that you can come in church looking all promiscuous and with your butt hanging out and thighs out and cleavage out. You can come as you are in that way if you ain't got enough sense to notice the house of God. But you also can just come as you are in the spirit. If you are raggedy spiritually, if you are exposed spiritually, you can also come to God and bow down to him as you are and ask for forgiveness and a change of trajectory in your life from there. Shortly after, it was this person who came into my life that I just recently broke up with through the calling of God on my life. My life turned upside down so that it could be turned right side up. Thank you for watching this. This was, you know, the first part of my testimony. I hope that, you know, this helped somebody to realize, you know, like, we all are raggedy. You know, don't judge outward appearances. Please don't judge outward appearances, because God looks at the heart, and he loves you even if your heart is so up from the flow up. But you can't continue to live in sin and think God finna bless your life. You can't continue to live in sin thinking that you ain't finna get towed down by that same sin. You can't think you finna live in sin and Satan ain't gonna have his way with you, and he ain't finna, rip you to pieces. He will do it. He will try to kill you, and the quicker you get out of there, the better off you will be. The quicker you get out of there, get out of Egypt. Get out of Egypt, get out of Egypt, get out of Egypt, get out of Egypt. Egypt don't love you. Egypt just wants you to be a slave. Egypt trying to exploit you. Egypt is trying to get your hard labor for nothing. For nothing. You don't get no pay for that kind of labor. You don't get paid for that. You just suffer for nothing. This is part one of my testimony. Thank you so much for listening in. And I'll see you in part two of this testimony.